Welcome to Should Ash Catch This 7th Generation Pokemon?
Pokemon! 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 Pokemon!
Hello everyone, I'm Dustin Benzel, and welcome to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my first Pokemon Sun and Moon anime discussion. Now, I may be wrong, I may have done some little bit of speculation before, but this is, at least as far as I'm aware, the first Pokemon Sun and Moon anime discussion that I'm going to talk about. Because this is in relation to what I just said, should Ash catch one of these particular 7th generation Pokemon. So what I'm going to do is by batch of Pokemon that I see that are released, I will of course make one of these particular videos. Right now we have a lot of Pokemon from the starters, or from Magearna, technically, because that was the first one revealed, all the way to Salandit is what we're going to talk about. So here's how it runs down. I'm going to discuss a Pokemon, or at least I'm going to say the Pokemon's name, and then I'm going to have 3 particular categories. Why should Ash catch this Pokemon? Why shouldn't Ash catch this Pokemon? And my personal opinion. Now, for the why should Ash capture this Pokemon, why Ash shouldn't capture this Pokemon are trying to be objective and look at the Pokemon objectively, while my personal opinion will be what I think in regards to that particular Pokemon. I don't know how long this particular video is going to be. If it gets too long, there will be timestamps of each particular Pokemon in the description below. So that's pretty much it. Also, in my personal opinion, I will also give a rating for my desire for Ash to capture it. 0 out of 10. Of course, there are no zeros and there's no 10s, but you get what I'm saying or whatever. Before we start, again, this is the first batch. Next batch will, of course, be however many Pokemon we get. I don't know how many videos of this particular kind we're going to have, but I will go through the entire Alola Pokedex when it eventually comes out, even if the last video is only a couple of stragglers that weren't revealed beforehand. Also, this does not take in consideration the evolutions except for one confirmed evolutionary line. I will of course talk about secondary evolutions and other evolutions potentially later on as a overall thought. So like if one Pokemon I have a desire to capture but then it evolves into something unfortunate, I will of course discuss my opinions on that in a later video. But for right now, we're only going to talk about the Pokemon that have been revealed so far. Oh, I forgot to edit one particular part of my notes, but of course we don't care anyway. So let's of course begin. Let's start with Rowlet. Why should Ash catch this Pokemon? Ash catching this particular Pokemon would be good because it would be a nice replacement for Noctowl. I mean, not necessarily a replacement, like, Noctowl is bad, let's get a replacement for it. What I'm saying is, Ash's last owl-like Pokemon was, of course, Noctowl, his shiny Noctowl, so it would be nice to see Ash with another owl Pokemon. And of course, unfortunately, it took until the Sinnoh League before Noctowl got any actual focus because its run in Johto relied heavily on the gym battle with Morty, and of course I believe it lost to Harrison Steelix. Bye-bye Noctowl, hello Hoenn region, I guess you could say. So it's really nice for them to actually take a Noctowl seriously because it would be one of Ash's starters. So Ash could have an owl Pokemon and then potentially fully evolve it with cool moves and stuff, and then evolve it into something cool. Because like I said, Noctowl, it waited until the Sinnoh League where it had extrasensory, air slash, and sky attack, and those were cool moves, but it waited until then to have it, so at least now we have the opportunity for Ash to have a fleshed out bird. Why shouldn't Ash catch a Rowlet? With the revolution of Pikipek and the uncertainty of what other grass-type Pokemon there are, Ash doesn't necessarily need a Rowlet because we could always get another grass-type Pokemon with some unique typing, or we could even have Pikipek, which might indeed possibly have Bullet Seed, especially when it has the move Skill Link. And also, it is a bird starter, and typically, so far, all of the bird Pokemon starters have gone to female traveling companions. So, and on top of that, it's high time that a female traveling companion does in fact get the grass starter. We've had plenty of water, we have plenty of fire. Where's the grass? Where's the grass? And no, Maze Bulbasaur does not count because it wasn't May's starter. May's starter was Torchic. So anyway, let's move on to my personal opinion. I personally believe that Ash should only catch Rowlet if he's also getting Litten. I would not like that if he only got Rowlet, because I feel like that would take out two of the Pokemon that I would like Ash with technically, in terms of personal bias, because I really like Litten and I also really like Pikipek, and I can't imagine Ash with Rowlet and Pikipek because I fear that Pikipek might just evolve into a normal flying, and that's a little fearful and everything. So if Ash gets, and I do understand that if Ash doesn't get Litten and Pikipek, if he got Rowlet, maybe his team would be more diverse, but I just still don't want Ash with the Rowlet outright and would still prefer Litten. Right now, Litten's evolutions would have to be completely unimpressive whatsoever, even if you don't potentially like them, for me to be like, okay, let's just give Ash a Rowlet and be done with it. So right now, I rate my desire for Ash to get a Rowlet a 6.5 out of 10. So of course, let's move on to Litten. Why should Ash catch a Litten? Litten is the coolest looking Pokemon. I know that's a personal bias or whatever, but of course I don't necessarily mean bias anyway. I mean demeanor wise. I mean, you've seen these cool characters in the show or whatever, and Rowlet and Popplio don't strike me as the cool starter. It really does come off as Litten because Litten just doesn't care, and you kind of get that feeling with cool people or cool demeanors in that they just don't care, and Litten is that kind of Pokemon. And of course, since it is based off a volcano, I'm expecting some really cool evolutions in regards to that, because if you remember, Isback had a volcano or whatever. There are some rumors and speculations going on in regards to Litten's evolutions, but right now they're not confirmed, so I'm not going to care about them. So it's just, it'd be nice if Ash had a Litten, because it just seems like the most interesting of the ones. So of course, that's just it. So why shouldn't Ash get a Litten? It being a cat Pokemon does put it at odds with Ash having Pikachu. Ash has never had a cat Pokemon, and it would be awkward to have Ash having a cat Pokemon when of course he also has Pikachu. So I don't know if that's going to be a thing. And of course, on top of that, if the speculation of Ash catching Rockruff is in fact confirmed, then Ash having Litten, Rockruff, and Pikachu would be completely weird with the whole, the pet theme or whatever. Especially if you had Pikipek and Rowlet, it'd be like Ash's team is his own version of Petco or the zoo or something. So we gotta be careful. We can't just give Ash a whole bunch of pet-looking Pokemon. We may need to diversify Ash's team, even though the writers and producers don't really care about that. No shade whatsoever. My personal opinion, I want Ash with Litten, simply because it is a cool-looking Pokemon, and this time, I mean personal opinion rather than objective, and because it's a cat, Rowlet's a fine Pokemon, a bird Pokemon, and then Popplio is, of course, a sea lion Pokemon, which is all fine and everything, but a cat. I want to see Ash with a cat, and a fire cat would be pretty cool. And I didn't really like the idea of Ash with Litten because of fletchling. There we go. But this seems more like Ash. This feels like it's a little bit more fledged, and it would make a little bit more sense for Ash to get Litten, at least in my opinion. Also, given its appearance in the other two, it does come off more as the Froakie, Trico, Chimchar, Turtwig of the team. You know, the Pokemon that seem like it's for boys and boys would get. You know, like how Ash couldn't get Fennekin because Fennekin's line is apparently a feminine Pokemon, so of course they have to give it to the female traveling companion. And even though I do think that while I think it's dogs are probably more inclined to human males, and while cats are more leaning towards, like females, female, whatever I'm trying to say there, but I just think of it like this, uh, the owl kind of looks like a cute little bird Pokemon that a female traveling companion, and then we have Popplio, who's the performer Pokemon on the team. So of course it would make a little bit more sense, in my opinion, that of course Litten would go to Ash because it's the one that doesn't care, and it's like straight up, and it looks like something that a boy would have over the other two. Not saying that the other two starters are awesome in their own way, just in regards to Ash, I feel like it'd make more sense with Litten. So that's why I rate my desire for Ash to capture a Litten an 8.5 out of 10. Let's move on to Popplio. Why should Ash get a Popplio? I realize that's going to get annoying, but it's just I'm trying something new in regards to this particular series, so I apologize if it's a little uncomfortable or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, why should Ash capture a Popplio? With the disaster known as Oshawott Gate, which if it did evolve, would evolve into an epic sea lion. Unfortunately, that never happened. So Ash capturing Popplio would hopefully make up for Oshawott's failure and give Ash the proper fully evolved sea lion Pokemon that Ash deserved in 5th generation. Screw Cameron. LOL. Okay. Anyway, why Ash should not capture a Popplio or get a Popplio. After the success of Ash Greninja, a form that Ash Greninja can take into, and very well may link to Synchro Evolution, which might be something introduced in 7th generation, I feel like Ash needs to step away from focusing on water starters or water Pokemon. I'm not saying you can't have a water Pokemon, but I feel like it's going to be more like Corphish or Buizel in that sense, or maybe a proper Palpitoad done right. I don't know. But I feel like in regards to power hitters on Ash's team, I'm thinking we should either get a grass or fire this particular generation. Not to mention if the Alola region starters could hypothetically synchro evolve, giving Ash an Ash Popplio fully evolved form would be ridiculous right after the Kalos region. I mean, I don't know why I'm thinking of Popplio looking like Yugi for whatever reason. That's weird looking. No, get that out of my head. Sorry. But I just feel like it wouldn't make any sense to just give Ash another fully evolved water starter that can hypothetically synchro evolve into Ash Popplio fully evolved starter, and then Ash uses that as his powerhouse. It just would feel very awkward to have right after Ash Greninja. On top of that, the description of Popplio in the description has stated that Popplio is a performer, and I don't know if that necessarily suits Ash's battling style. So my personal opinion, while Popplio is cute, and if Alola represents a lot of success what they did with the Kalos region, there's no reason why Popplio couldn't be Oshawott done right if they follow the trend of Kalos in regards to it giving Ash a fully evolved team. Unfortunately, as I said before in probably another video, I feel like it's too soon, or even in this particular video, I misread my notes. I feel like it's too soon for Ash to capture another water type starter right at this particular moment. That being said, a Litten Popplio mix-up would definitely be interesting, as it would be similar situation to Infernape and Torterra, but with a water type instead of a grass, not another Torterra. Hopefully not another Torterra. All that said, however, unfortunately, I would rate my desire to Ash having a Popplio a 4.5 out of 10. Rockruff. Why should Ash capture a Rockruff? Rockruff is one of the most adorable 7th generation Pokemon revealed so far, and since it is a puppy Pokemon, it should have evolutions. In fact, the description on Pokemon.com confirms that it at least has one evolution. That's amazing. The clincher on the cake is that it is a rock type, a type that Ash does not have much familiarity with outside of his Boulder, but Boulder I don't believe was handled properly. So, of course, he could give it a proper rock type that will fully evolve potentially, and we'll get something pretty cool. Why Ash shouldn't get a Rockruff. Korokoro revealed that Rockruff and the 3 starters shared something in common. They all shared something in common, and if it has something to do with their final evolution, such as Synchro Evolution or something battle-wise, then Ash having 1 or 2 or 3 starters plus Rockruff would be extremely off-putting and would feel like Ash is the only one marketing this particular new feature. I also question whether or not Ash should have a team full of pets as well. Pikachu being a mouse, Rowlet and Litten have the chance of being a pet-like because they're bird and cat. The only one that's not like that is Popplio and a sea lion. Unless sea lions are pets that I don't know about. It would just be a little strange for Ash to have a Rockruff. But right now, it's whatever. So anyway, my personal opinion, assuming there aren't better wild cards out there, wild card options that would be like really surprising for Ash to catch, or the animators are willing to Ash capture a lot more Pokemon, I'm completely game for Ash to get a Rockruff. While I would like to completely wait until more Pokemon are revealed before fully committing to what I believe would be a great Ash team, I'm okay with Rockruff. That's why I will rate my desire for Ash to get a Rockruff a 7.5 out of 10. Komala. Why should Ash catch a Komala? Ash has had not a decent normal type since Snorlax. You can argue Apom, you can argue the birds, but they really were never treated as a pure normal type, and Apom was traded off before it evolved with Dawn. So, of course, it would make it be interesting if Ash had another normal type that he used, and if Naquala evolves, and because of its ability, Ash with a Naquala might stand out just as much as Ash with Snorlax standed out in regards to Ash having a nice normal starter. Why should Ash not capture a Komala? Komala seems to be a gimmick-based Pokemon relying on its ability to only make it able to be put to sleep. It cannot be poisoned, it cannot be paralyzed, it cannot be burned, it cannot be frozen, which makes me think that Ash won't catch it given that status conditions are not that focused or touched upon in the anime. My personal opinion, when I think of Ash getting a normal type, I think of Pokemon like Snorlax or Exploud. If Ash was going to get a normal type, I would want something more brutish, more monstrous, like Exploud, or something really big and more epic. Maybe even something like Slaking or something, something that makes it stand out because it is a normal type and not just because it's just got the normal type slap. Which is why I will rate my desire for Ash to get a Komala a 5.5 out of 10. Pikipek. Why should Ash catch a Pikipek? Pikipek is an interesting bird Pokemon, more so than any of Ash's other Pokemon if Ash were to capture a Pikipek. With an ability like Skill Link, I feel like this Pokemon could indeed be an impressive Pokemon on Ash's team. Plus, it seems to be confirmed that Pikipek has 2 evolutions. So it's like Pidgey, it's like Starly, it's like P-Dove, it's like Fletchling. So that's definitely a nice factor for it being caught. Why Ash should not catch a Pikipek. Ash potentially catching Pikipek, or Ash potentially catching Rowlet would make Pikipek completely pointless. Plus, if Pikipek fully evolves into a normal flying, then why give Pikipek to Ash anyway if he does get Rowlet? I'm not sure if Skill Link will be enough of a unique factor for Ash to get it, but it should be there. At least better than its other ability, which I believe is Kenai. My personal opinion. Pikipek is my personal now favorite cutest regional bird Pokemon. I think it's cuter than Pidgey. I think it's cuter than Hoot. I think it's cuter than Talo. I think it's cuter than Starly, P-Dove, Fletchling, and so on and so forth. Whatever I may have missed, Pikipek is cute. Sure, Rufflet was pretty cute, but it wasn't a regional bird Pokemon. So I definitely think right now Pikipek I feel like is the cutest basic bird Pokemon that there is. The coloring of its beak and feet, very metallic looking, lends it to maybe even evolving into a steel. And if that's a giant steel flying giant woodpecker like Pokemon would be amazing on Ash's team. It would probably be the Skarmory, probably done right, so it's definitely an interesting form. So it's my favorite bird Pokemon of all time so far in terms of basic stage. That's why I would rate my desire for Ash to get Pikipek an 8 out of 10. Yungoos. Why should Ash catch a Yungoos? Yungoos is an interesting normal type with an interesting ability called Strong Jaw. Given that it is a normal type, it stands to reason Ash's hypothetical Yungoos might learn interesting moves like Bite, Crunch, Fire Fang, Ice Fang, Poison Fang, Thunder Fang, all moves that right now are boosted by Strong Jaw. And if Yungoos receives a normal type move that is boosted by Strong Jaw, that will definitely make Yungoos stand out even more, as each of its normal bite attacks will deal pretty much super effective hits on neutral types, because not only will stab boost it to 50%, Strong Jaw will also boost its attack to 50%, add that, and I feel like it'll do super effective damage. And if it's a strong enough move, that would be a pretty epic move. So then, of course, those who only slightly resist it, normal types like your pure steel, your pure rocks, or whatever, not a combination of two, it'll at least look like it does neutral damage, which is definitely very interesting. So, of course, something like that will definitely give Yungoos an interesting place on Ash's team. Why Ash should not catch a Yungoos. Yungoos seems to rely heavily on its ability for it to be unique. Otherwise, it's no different than your normal rodent. I don't think mongooses are rodents, but, rodent-like Pokemon, even if they're not quite rodent, that Pokemon that seems rodentia in the beginning, so whatever. So, while more monstrous than Komala, I don't see it having on place on Ash's team. Instead, I feel like it'd make more sense to give it to one of Ash's traveling companions, or maybe even one of Team Rocket's Pokemon. My personal opinion. While I'm sure Yungoos can learn some amazing moves that make it stand out on Ash's team, its hypothetical evolution would have to be what tips me over. Otherwise, it's going to be off-putting to give this Pokemon to Ash. And as I repeated before, it would probably make more sense for Team Rocket to have Yungoos. Unfortunately, I would have to rate my desire for Ash to capture a Yungoos at a 4.5 out of 10. Okay, Grubbin. Now, when I made the notes, I didn't realize Grubbin was confirmed, so this applies to the whole entire Grubbin line. So, of course, that's what we're going to call it as. Okay, so, of course, what I'm going to talk about right now is Vikavolt. Grubbin and, of course, Charjabug don't really matter. What's important is the final evolution, because if Ash were to get Grubbin, it would be fully evolved, which is why I'm going to talk about Vikavolt. And then the other two are just going to be piggybacked on top of that. So why should Ash capture a Vikavolt? Have you seen it? Have you seen Vikavolt? This thing looks amazingly epic for a Pokemon. I know that's a little biased or whatever, but wow. I was not expecting something like that to be in Pokemon. Plus, it's about time that Ash gets a second electric type. And what better way to ease Ash into having another electric type than Vikavolt? Its a bug electric stands out and would give Ash a unique bug type that he's never had before and would also give him a second electric type. Why Ash should not catch a Vikavolt. While I personally do not believe it matters, objectively, Ash getting a second electric type would mean that the writers and the producers are willing to lessen the importance of Pikachu. Again, I don't personally believe this, but it would make sense why the writers would not be willing to give Ash another electric type. I'm willing to understand it even if I don't believe in it. So, of course, I'm willing to understand why they wouldn't give Vikavolt. On top of that, if we're getting an epic Pokemon like this early in the game, what kind of epic other fully evolved Pokemon can we expect later in the game? And would they be more suited to giving to Ash? My personal opinion, I say forget Pikachu's feelings. Man up and enjoy your new teammate. New same type teammate with a bug typing as well. You'll still be Ash's main electric type, but since you're stuck with Electro Ball and Thunderbolt, why not let Ash's hypothetical Vikavolt get a taste of other electric type moves like Wild Charge or Spark or something, because I think Charjabug can learn Spark, Therefore, I will rate my desire for Ash to get a Vikavolt an 8 out of 10. Drampa. Why Ash should get Drampa? Nothing else would make up for Ash releasing Goodra by apologizing and giving Ash another dragon type that he actually gets to have on his team throughout his entire journey. Of course, I think I made these notes before Goodra was confirmed to be on Ash's Kalos League team, but sure, Ash did get Noibat and Noivern, which is pretty cool. But even so, I feel like Ash deserved to have Goodra throughout his whole team because I really did not like Ash with 5 teams. And I realize it's not an objective opinion, but I feel like Ash deserved a full team throughout the whole entire generation, which they didn't do. So, of course, I feel like it would make sense for Ash to get another dragon that he could use all to the beginning. So, on top of that, this is a normal dragon type Pokemon, which is very unique. Why Ash shouldn't get Drampa. First off, that thing is huge. Drampa is 9 feet. It's 9 feet, however many inches. I think that's bigger than Torterra. I think Torterra is like 8 foot or whatever. Drampa is gigantor. I'm not expecting Ash to outright catch Drampa. If Drampa has pre-evolutions, then maybe Ash can get it, but wow. Just wow is Drampa huge. So, of course, there has to also be probably more epic looking dragons in the lower region, right? I mean, there has to be other dragon types that we don't know about, so maybe they're more suited to give an Ash if Ash was going to give a dragon type. So I don't necessarily have anything against Drampa, but what I would like is something more like Hydreigon, like a scarier, like Druddigan or something. And Drampa just looks a little too much goofy and friendly looking, and it's too much like Goodra in my objectable opinion, which is why I don't feel like it makes sense to give Ash Drampa. My personal opinion, when I think of Ash, when I think of Drampa getting Ash as a Pokemon, no, when I think of Ash getting a cool normal type, I typically refer to a pure typing, which is why I don't care about Ash's birds being normal. Drampa, however, might be the one exception. While I still hope to see Ash with a Pokemon like Exploud, like a normal type that's scary and monstrous looking or whatever, Drampa still would stand out more than his normal types that he's had before. Plus, especially since it has a dragon typing, which would definitely make it an interesting Pokemon. That's why I will rate my desire for Ash to get a Drampa a 7 out of 10. Bruxish. Cutiefly. Just kidding. Why should Ash catch a Bruxish? Bruxish. Stop laughing. Just let me do this, okay? And we can move on. Okay? Bruxish is wild, eccentric, and exaggerated. Makeup looking fish with that scary fish with a flower on its forehead and is water psychic. what kind of cool adventures would we see Ash and Bruxish having together? Just imagine, just close your eyes and imagine Ash and Bruxish just laughing because Bruxish stunned its opponents with its flower or protuberance from its head, and how priority moves have no effect. So just imagine Bruxish laughing, laughing. I said close your eyes, not your internet browser. So why Ash should not catch a Bruxish? Unless it becomes a Milotic or even a Gyarados if it evolves, maybe even a Gorbis potentially, then I'm having a hard time believing any legitimate reason for why Ash would capture a Bruxish. Plus, I'm not sure I would want Bruxish to be Ash's first Psychic-type Pokemon. After all, Bruxish is a fish Pokemon, and I'm probably butchering its name. That's probably another reason why Ash should not get this particular Pokemon. My personal opinion. Look, I know I made jokes about Bruxish and everything like that, but I personally believe people are just a little bit too harsh on Bruxish. For one thing, I think it looks loads better than Aromatisse. You know, I think the reason I don't dislike it as much is that it's very vibrant, colorful, and energetic. And even though those teeth kind of scare me, and its description on Pokemon.com is a little suspect. Bill Cosby. Uh, and it does seem like a tropical schemed Pokemon. However, unless it gets some wicked evolution or whatever, because it is a fish, I'm gonna rate my desire catching this thing a very low 3 out of 10. Cutiefly. Clarification of options. Oh, never mind. Cutiefly is as big. When I made my notes, other information was revealed, and I didn't know how big Cutiefly was. Cutiefly is tied with Joltik and Flabébé as the smallest Pokemon, which is why what I say in my options and categories is that it was under that assumption, but I didn't change my notes as thoroughly as I believe. So, of course, yes, Cutiefly is 4 inches tall, so that's why I will say the things that I do. So, why should Ash catch a Cutiefly? Flabébé, or more specifically Forge, is my all-time favorite fairy type. Flabébé was as small as Joltik, but evolved into a bigger Pokemon. Cutiefly's potential to evolve into Uglyfly, joking, and it being a bug fairy definitely make it stand out. When I said perhaps Ash should get a different bug type than Vikavolt, does Cutiefly apply? Why Ash should not catch Cutiefly? Well, while I do like that it definitely strikes me as a Pokemon version of David and Goliath more so than Joltik and Flabébé, and Ash could utilize a Pokemon like that, I'm afraid Cutiefly, if it's ever directly attacked, even with a Dragon type move, a type that it should be immune to, will one hit KO poor Cutiefly. Poor Cutiefly. My personal opinion. A bug fairy would definitely be interesting on Ash's team, and who knows what this Pokemon could potentially evolve into if it can evolve. Could we expect the same thing as Florges, but the bug counterpart? I rate my desire for Ash to capture a 7 out of 10 just to see what Ash would do with it. It's time for Salandit. Why should Ash catch a Salandit? A poison fire Pokemon that possesses the ability to poison any Pokemon type would be a very interesting choice on Ash's team. It also being a poison fire type definitely means that Salandit is a very unique and interesting Pokemon, especially if it can evolve. Why shouldn't Ash catch a Salandit? Well, that's as simple as what I've said before in regards to why Ash should. The fact that it is a unique Pokemon with the ability to poison any all types in context with the enemy does not really strike me as something that would go to Ash, because Ash has never heavily relied on the idea of poisoning his opponents. So yeah, while it be a neat feature of his Pokemon, it just wouldn't really make any sense. Now in my notes, in my notes I did say that I did mention Palpitoad, and yes, that would make sense to counter that. But Ash's only afflicted status conditions when it just was like, well, it was part of the move, you know, it was never something so important. Ash never taught any of us Pokemon Thunder Wave if they could learn it, like Pikachu never had Thunder Wave, you know, and any other move that would definitely affect a status condition, like maybe Toxic or even Toxic Spikes. He's never had Pokemon that can learn those. I don't know if Ash had any Pokemon that can learn Toxic Spikes, but pretty much all Pokemon can learn Toxic. So, you know, it just doesn't seem like it would make any sense for Ash to have something to specifically poison his opponent, since that doesn't really make any sense. And I feel like it would make more sense for Team Rocket to be able to have something like this, or maybe even a traveling companion. Anyway, my personal opinion, Salandit is awesome. I repeat, it is awesome. I would love nothing more than to have Ash with a Salandit. If Ash wasn't getting Litten, then Salandit would be the perfect Pokemon for Ash with a poison fire typing. It would be epic to see. First time Ash has had a poison type since Muck and Bulbasaur. About time he had something like that. And it would serve as a fire type for Ash's team. If Ash is getting Litten, however, I'm less keen on Ash having Salandit. But, of course, Ash has never had two fire types on his team, and so therefore it would be interesting for Ash to have two fire Pokemon on his team at one time, you know. Because he's had multiple water types on his team, multiple grass types on his team, especially with fifth generation. So it'd be interesting to have him with not four, two fire types. Let's not make him a fire trainer here. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought of Ash having two fire types. So regardless if Litten is a factor or not, I will say I will rate my desire for Ash to get a Salandit an 8 out of 10. Togedemaru. Why should Ash catch this Pokemon? I don't know. Why shouldn't Ash catch... Okay. Why Ash should catch Togedemaru? It definitely would be nice for Pikachu to have an electric mouse-like Pokemon that's part of the same team to interact with. You know, instead of like Emolga or Pachirisu or Dedenne or whatever. Someone that's on a different team but just a friend, I guess you could say. So, it would just be interesting if they were on the same team, you know, that they could work together on the same team, being controlled by the same trainer. So, at least in that particular aspect, Ash should get something like Togedemaru in something of that nature. That being said, why Ash should not capture Togedemaru, it would make little sense for Ash to give Ash, if they were going to give Ash a second electric type, it would make little sense to give him a second Pikachu. I mean, that's kind of hard to say since he's never had an electric type before. So, you know, it might make sense. Hey, Ash's next electric type will be in another Pikachu type or whatever. And while its steel typing does make it stand out, I just don't think it would make any sense for it to give Ash, if Ash was going to get a second type, I would think they would give him something completely different than Pikachu. Besides, can this Togedemaru thing even evolve? Would it really need a standalone Pikachu clone or whatever? So anyway, my personal opinion on this, I would dislike the fact that Ash's first alternative electric type, or second altogether electric type, would just be another Pikachu clone as opposed to something like Vikavolt or whatever electric Pokemon we're going to get. So while the intimate personal dynamic of Togedemaru and Pikachu would be interesting, fresh, and new, I'm rating my desire for Ash to get one a 2 out of 10, and only because of its steel typing and its spiky body is the only reason why I'm giving it any points at all. So anyway, let's move on. The rest of them seem to be legendary type Pokemon, and I neglected to mention this in the beginning of the video, is that I was going to include every single Pokemon in regards to this particular video. So of course, let's move on to Tapu Koko. Why Ash should get it. An electric fairy Aztec tribal warrior looking bird creature What else needs to be mentioned? I mean, that thing is wow. This thing would look very unique on Ash's team since it, just design wise, it would be very unique. So I don't think Ash has had anything similar to it. The closest he would have gotten is if he actually captured a Sigilif, which he did not. So no point in bringing that up. Plus, with Tapu Koko's ability and Pikachu would make the greatest duo of electric ever. Tapu Koko's fairy typing would also make it incredibly good, as it would be the only Pokemon, as that would give Pikachu and Tapu Koko trouble. The only Pokemon that would give them trouble would be, of course, a steel ground type, because a normal ground type would take lots of damage from fairy types, but if you add steel and ground to it, then the electric and fairy type would be difficult. So if it was going to be a double team, that would be fine. Why Ash should not get a Tapu Koko? With it likely being a legendary and most likely a 580 or a 600 base stat total legendary, I feel like if they were going to give Ash his first legendary Pokemon that would have something like 580 or a 600 base stat total, I just don't think it would really make any sense for it to be an electric type. You know, on top of its electric typing, its fierce nature would definitely put it at odds with Pikachu far more than Vikavolt, because Vikavolt is a very specific Pokemon if you know the information about it. So and on top of that, Ash having a powerful electric Pokemon that is not Pikachu would be relatively insulting, which is why I think something like Vikavolt would make more sense for Ash to have a second electric type. My personal opinion. The only thing that's holding me back is the fact that it's a legendary, and the logical perspective that Ash wouldn't have an electric Pokemon that would be technically stronger than Pikachu. But in spite of all that, Tapu Koko is so far my favorite 7th generation Pokemon revealed so far, and I hope that it's just merely a fully evolved Pokemon, which is why I will rate my desire for Ash to catch it a very high 9 out of 10. Solgaleo and Lunala each will have their own why should Ash catch it, but the why Ash should not catch it and the overall personal opinion will be roughly the same. Each, however, will have their own particular ratings. Why Ash should get a Solgaleo. Forget Litten, let's just go bump it up to Ash getting a giant legendary cat Pokemon, and a Steel Psychic type would definitely be interesting, since the only other Pokemon that have had that typing are Pokemon like Metagross, Bronzor, Bronzong, and I'm pretty sure that's all I can think of at this particular moment. So it'd definitely be an interesting force to be reckoned with. Why Ash should catch a Lunala? Who wouldn't want Ash's first true ghost to be a giant vampiric legendary bat-like monster? It definitely stands more out. It would definitely stand out more on Ash's team than Solgaleo, at least in my opinion. But you know, hey, why Ash should not catch a Solgaleo or a Lunala, as both are likely uber legendaries with like 680 base stat total, as in the strongest legendaries within the region. Ash catching one would hinge entirely on it being a temporary capture that he doesn't use in the league, perhaps the Elite Four and champion battles, and would also hinge on another lesser trainer having captured a Mewtwo, a Ho-Oh, a Lugia, Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Palkia, Dialga, Giratina, Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem, Xerneas, Eviltal, and Zygarde. Now, Ash could catch a lesser legendary Pokemon like Moltres or even Darkrai, which is more of a mythical Pokemon, but maybe like Deoxys, since Deoxys is no longer a mythical Pokemon and could be regarded as just a legendary. So like Articuno or Cobalion, or even standard legendaries or mythic Pokemon like Cresselia or Darkrai. Perhaps even Pokemon like Mew and Celebi could theoretically be options for a trainer like Ash. But a Pokemon with a base stat total of like 680 or close to that, I mean, you could argue that Ash could have a Slacking, but there's a reason why it has Truant as an ability and is also part of an evolutionary line. So I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not seeing that it would make any sense. My personal opinion, I don't want the balance of Ash's team to hinge entirely on the power of such a powerful Pokemon. I'm fine with a lesser legendary Pokemon of 580 or even a 600 legendary, as long as it's treated like Pokemon of that nature. Like Ash has a Goodra, but it's not a legendary. I don't think Ash's Goodra could take out a Articuno, for example, given that it's super effective. It might have some advantage over Zapdos and Moltres or whatever, but I don't think Ash's Goodra would be strong enough to counter it. You know, with Mega Evolutions, maybe that would make more sense, but I still don't know if Mega Evolutions of the wrong typing could go against legendaries of that are super effective. So I'm not really sure if that would make any sense. So I just don't think that I just don't think it would make any sense, you know. So that's why I'm gonna rate my desire to catch a Solgaleo a 4 out of 10 and a Lunala 4.5 out of 10. Just too strong of a Pokemon to give to Ash. Magearna, the last Pokemon of the first batch of this particular video. Why Ash should catch a Magearna. Ash's character and his love for all kinds of Pokemon would be amplified if Ash were to have an artificially made Pokemon. On top of this, Magearna's personality to try and rescue all Pokemon in danger would mesh extremely well within Ash's character. Plus, Steel Fairy would definitely be an interesting type. Why Ash should not catch a Magearna. Magearna is a mythical Pokemon and therefore is less likely to be obtained by a trainer with a legendary that could be outright caught in the games. While it is true there are characters with mythical Pokemon like Darkrai, and there being multiple Darkrai, Magearna comes. But the problem is, while Darkrai does seem like there are multiple Darkrai out there, Magearna comes off as a one of a kind. So far, there's only been one Magearna, and it seems like the creator of Magearna only created one Magearna. So Magearna comes off as a one of a kind mechanical Pokemon that, while objectively could be better off with Ash than any other character, it would make more sense for Magearna to stay at home, since I don't know how curious and interested Magearna would be to explore the region. Plus, it would have to be a temporary capture, since I'm having a hard time imagining Magearna chilling at Professor Oak's in comparison to other mythical and legendary Pokemon. Plus, Ash's hypothetical Magearna would likely conflict with the movie's explanation of how Magearna would be. Would the writers want to make the Magearna movie that non-canon? But I guess it is possible that there could be two Magearna that exist. I just feel like it wouldn't make any sense. My personal opinion, a Steel Fairy mechanical man-made Pokemon is definitely interesting, and there is nothing wrong with Magearna outside of my perspective of what Magearna should represent, and that's a Pokemon that should probably stay at home, wherever home is, rather than tagging along as one of Ash's capture. Perhaps as a temporary traveling companion, but nothing inside a Pokeball. That's why I'm rating my desire to catch Magearna a 5.5 out of 10. So anyway, that covers this particular video, this particular batch of Pokemon. I will continue to do this until the anime series is released, or at least until all the Pokemon. Well, I'm going to do this for all Pokemon. If, for example, in future videos we get evolved Pokemon as some of the Pokemon that I mentioned, they may indeed increase the rating that I have for something. So, like if Togedemaru turns into this like ninja steel electric type that looks really cool looking, then I might update Togedemaru from a 2 to something higher or whatever. So I will take in consideration to that. And I will, of course, talk about all Pokemon as much as possible, unless lines are confirmed. So, like, if they were to reveal a Noibat and Noivern at the same time, I would just group that as Noivern, or the Noibat line, in regards to whether or not I want Ash to capture it, or something of that nature. So, and then, of course, I don't know, I am probably going to wait until there are at least 10 new Pokemon before doing something like this again. So, while they may release like 5 Pokemon next in the next couple of weeks or whatever, if one of them, you get what I'm saying in regards to evolutionary lines. Okay, so anyway, I don't know when the next one will be. Probably when there's a minimum of 10 new Pokemon. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'm Dustin Benzel, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.